Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Here I am, Omar, with the Omar Quraishi view, and as you must have seen in our previous podcast, normally I'm the one talking, and I have a colleague, and we answer questions back and forth. But given what's been happening in Pakistan over the past a week, but in fact for the past I would say 12 hours, we have a very special guest, and we wanted to invite guests to our podcast, and we have a very special guest, former Vice Chief of the Pakistan Air Force, Air Vice Marshal Shahzad Chaudhry Saab. Shahzad Saab, Assalamu alaikum and welcome, and thank you for
Walaikum
coming to
assalam.
our. So, sir,
Yeah.
what I'll do is I'll start with a basic question, and then we can take it from there. And obviously, there's so much to talk about. I think the most obvious question would be, and I'm sure lots of people must be asking you about this, is that how would you assess, let's say, the events of the past 12 hours, given I think that what India started happened around 4 5 a.m., and then how Pakistan responded, and where we stand now, and then, the Indian Defense Ministry press conference, and so on.
Omar, first off, walaikum assalam, and thank you for having me on your channel. I greatly appreciate the fact that you made me one of your initial guests, first guest.
Ji,
So
bilkul.
great, so great to be with you. Yeah, the times are such, and we are we've been through a difficult phase of our national journey, without a doubt. Obviously, we were put to a test by a large neighbor. India, of course, is a country which is for the last decade or so, or a couple of decades, has been doing very well and was uh, going its way. But somehow, somewhere, an incident happened in Kashmir, Pahalgam, that began the whole thing. And then India decided to test us out. I mean, you're talking about the last 12 hours, but actually, what is very, very significant is the fact that the last about 4 days or so have been quite a thing for Pakistani watchers to see, and for those who believe in Pakistan or are relations here or are Pakistanis will obviously be proud of the fact how Pakistan has acquitted itself. But yeah,
Yes.
to your question, to your
But sir,
question,
we,
to your
we can we can we can start from the past 4 days. That's fine. You're
yeah,
right,
that was
absolutely right.
perfect. Yeah,
Why do it for
yeah,
12
perfect.
hours? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfectly fine. I'll first answer the last
Gee,
the last 12 hours first, and let's do that first, and then we
gee.
can go back to the 4 days. Look, I mean, there was this expectation for the ever since this night 6 and 7 that Pakistan is bound to, or would Pakistan retaliate or not in terms of the offensive. Remember, 6th, 7th, and subsequently for the next 2 days, that is on the 7th and the 8th, and possibly part of the ninth, most of the ninth actually, for the 3 days after 6 and 7, we've been basically involved in defensive operations. Even on the
Gee.
6th, 7th night, Pakistan was doing defensive operations alone. We were defending ourselves. Our aeroplanes, our forces, our power never crossed the Indian territory. But the Indians were the ones who were aggressors, and they attacked Pakistan. They violated the sovereignty of Pakistan, and they sent in munitions, etc., etc. Pakistan came out well, other than the loss on the ground of the innocent civilians. Pakistan did extremely well military wise, and we were able
Yep.
to shoot down those aeroplanes. So there was this question hanging in there: will Pakistan respond? And yesterday or the last night, the 12 hours that you're talking about, is the time that the Indians have been actually poking us, provoking us to do
Yeah.
something. If there
The
was
drones
something,
and everything, they're
yeah,
sending the drones.
drones and the missiles, and the combination of drones and the missiles. And Pakistan was barely defending itself. Just over the last 2 days or 2.5 days, Pakistan shot down 77 or neutralized 77 drones of the Indian of India, flown from India. So that fact stays. Some missiles got through, and the others were actually intercepted in midway. I mean, somewhere along with in their flight. So that was a fact. Till, of course, some of our bases were attacked last night, which included Nur Khan, which is Chaklala in Pendi, and then you have Shorecourt base, which is called the Rafiki Air Base, another important base for us, and then another base in towards further south. So, rather in midway in near Chakwal. Now,
Gee.
when you have these three bases attacked, Pakistan, and basically specifically targeting our assets and our military bases, our air force bases, there was no way that Pakistan could wait any longer. Pakistan waited enough for the world to intercede. to bring some sense into the Indians. And Pakistan has been just been playing a defensive operation, nothing beyond that. But this was a time Pakistan had to respond, and Pakistan responded across the spectrum. We took on their airfields, we took on their depots, ammunition depots, we took on their storage sites for BrahMos, we took on the S-400, the latest missile system that they
And
bought from
that's
Russia.
destroyed in Udhampur.
Adampur,
Yeah,
yeah,
Udhampur.
Adampur, that is where we destroyed it. And their main airfields, Adampur is a heavily defended airfield. And what is more is that Pakistani Air Force sent its aeroplanes with weapons which were meant for these kind of targets and neutralize them. And when
And
you
so
look
they've
at the
sent them across the border. They went across the line of control
some
into
of them,
this.
I don't think so. I don't think so. They would have crossed the
So
border
they wouldn't
because
have. Okay.
our ranges are enough. Our ranges are
Okay. Just
enough
wanted a
to,
clarification for our
yeah,
viewers,
yeah, yeah,
because people might
yeah.
wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. We've done that. And remember one thing that there's there are reports of at least two more planes having been shot down yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so when you look at that, and they perhaps one of them at least has landed or the wreckage has landed in the Pakistani side. So if these are the things that the Indians continue to seem to be aggressing against Pakistan. So when you look at that, then of course you realize that Pakistan has mostly the rules of this particular were very clear. This particular skirmish or the short or brief interaction that we've had with the Indians were very clear. The wreckage, Pakistan did not cross the borders or the line of control. Pakistan did not do that.
Okay.
And so only the Indians have done that. Indians
They
too were
have
very
done that.
careful.
Yeah.
They have done that. Indians too were very careful. They also did not want to cross because they had their lesson from 20
From
what
May
2019.
7th, 2019
No,
and May 7th. Yeah.
2019 when Abhinandan's aeroplane dropped this side. So they were
Yes.
also very careful. But I think within the last day or so, during the night, they probably chose to pursue Pakistani aeroplanes this side and became a target for them. So I think that is how it has happened. So good in the sense that Pakistan was able to display its professional competence. It was able to put on display the technology that it possessed, the ability to precisely attack Indian targets, regardless of their depth, and the ability that we could actually use a combination of forces, which included not only airborne assets, we could also surface launch missiles to target the same with actually equal precision. So I think a combination has delivered a message that the conventional deterrence of Pakistan is as important as the nuclear deterrence of the strategic deterrence.
Just to for my own clarification again for our viewers, when India attacked the air bases earlier today, was you're saying that they don't want to attack come on this side of the border either, having learned a lesson from 2019. So they're also sending in missiles into Pakistan, correct? And which are
That is that.
either reaching the target or not reaching the target. And a lot of people, I think, wonder and ask, like, so how come we are not able to track their missiles? What would you say to those people? How do we respond to that?
Yeah, first off, it's mostly missiles. No aeroplanes have,
Okay.
endeavored to come this side,
Mhm.
especially after the sixth and the seventh night.
Exactly.
The India has been very, very cautious with their air force. They don't want to give more trophies to Pakistan and the Pakistan Air Force, and they've kept their fighters away, and that is why they had to
Yeah,
come down to
I
the level.
wanted to ask you about that. Maybe I'll ask you later. I'd heard also that in
Yeah,
fact they've kept the fighters away from the western border.
yeah, and they instead depended more on drones and
Drones.
missiles.
Yes.
So that was the reason why they went on to drones and missiles. Now, to your question as to why the missiles are not intercepted, missiles are intercepted. That is why you don't
Okay.
hear of that amount of damage. So the number of missiles that are sent in, most of them are intercepted and neutralized in the air by our air defenses, and the ones that are able to slip through, and there will be a few that will slip through, depending upon the number or the frequency of
Mhm.
attack, and if not the mass of attack. So it's hardly a mass actually. It's basically one behind the other. So by the time a defense is taking out one, the other could slip through. But that is the kind of thing that you have to face. And unfortunately for us, it did not do any, hasn't done much of a damage in any of our airfields, and no lives are lost. Uh, Nothing has been reported as yet. Yeah, there could be minor damage, but to areas which are more administrative rather than operational.
Okay, right. And so, following the attack, how would you, what would you say, like India and Pakistan's, India? prides itself on having larger numbers of aircraft, ships, whatever. What has today's response by Pakistan done to that? And would it be fair to say that it doesn't enjoy air superiority over the part of Kashmir that it controls over northern India? Would it be fair to say that?
In the last 4 days, at least, that is what comes out, as a dominant thing. That, I mean, I'm not going to call it air supremacy because it's a contended airspace. I mean, when we
Okay.
go up in the air, of course, they also are in there, and we have to fight for our control of the air. That is the essence of air operations. So you fight for the control of the air, and as long as there is fight for control of the air and the space is contested, it is not air supremacy. It could be air superiority. Air superiority then again is time and duration limited, in the sense of time and space limited. So you have air superiority for the purpose, for the moment, for the time that you need. Secondly, in defensive operations, you basically deny airspace control to the enemy. You deny air superiority to the enemy. Enemy would like to actually control the air for that period of time, hold air supremacy for that period of time and the duration that they need the airspace to be used for, but you deny that to them, and that is how you deny it. That you kill them, you eliminate them, and they are unable to take control of the air. That is what Pakistan Air Force did on the 6th and the 7th. Subsequently, they never came up. They never. I mean, the UAVs or the drones were actually one-side missions. All of them were brought down. The
Yes,
missiles are meant to
exactly.
missiles
Exactly.
are
Yeah.
meant to go, and so they don't need airspace for with any perpetuity. They just have to go through, and that's about it. And Pakistan has means to defend against that. Yesterday's operation and yesterday and some of these operations that were done yesterday are also contributing to the air superiority, sense of air superiority. When you take out air defense systems on the other side, when you take
Yeah,
out
exactly.
S400 batteries, you diminish the capacity of the enemy to be a factor when you need the control of the air. And we have yet not gone across and done those kind of missions which are organic to the any air force in terms of an open full war. And were that to happen, then most of the bases that have gone down and the air defense systems that have gone down on the Indian side and the S-400 batteries that have gone down would obviously diminish or weaken its control of the airspace by their side, and we'll have less of a opposition. So I think that establishes if not the air supremacy, but a definite air superiority and in favor of the Pakistan Air Force. For the moment, that was your question. That yes, I
Yes,
see
sir.
that has come out as a very dominant thing. Yeah.
So also, I wanted to ask you that. So you must have seen the or heard about the press conference of the Indian Defense Ministry and the Indian Foreign Secretary when they have the daily press briefing, and so that there's something to the fact that they said that if we don't want to we want de-escalation, and but if Pakistan doesn't respond, so on and so forth and all that. Obviously, this was the Pakistan response to India, what it had started. But what do you make of their kind of tone and the body language was looking very defeatist for the lady. They have two spokes women, I think one from the Air Force, one from the Army, and then they have the Foreign Ministry, I think Foreign Secretary. And so they said that, and I think then Khwaja Asif and Ishaq Dar both came on TV on Geo and some other channels as well, and they were asked about the Marco Rubio call. And so Ishaq Dar was quite openly saying that we told Marco Rubio that we are only defending ourselves, and but then he said that this is our response, and we will not respond any further provided India doesn't respond. So, what would you? You've been in that place where you were like the vice chief of the Pakistan Air Force. What do you think will happen, or what do you think Pakistan should do,
Look, I
or
mean,
maybe not do? Yeah,
we
yeah.
must understand the philosophy of war. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Very simply, whenever the instrument of military is applied, it is meant to create space for the politics to follow.
Okay.
So what we have done is we've created space in the last 4 days. The application of military instrument from Pakistan has created space for our diplomacy and politics to now begin to take the lead and find solutions to the problems that Pakistan feels are challenging it. Okay, and the challenges that stand in our face is a country that may be much larger, with a force or a military which is much larger as well, tending to entitle itself to declaring someone with the nomenclature that it does, unfortunately, repeatedly, and as a terrorist or whatever, and therefore take the or arrogate to itself the right to go and attack its civilian populations at 9 different places and kill our children and our women and our innocent civilians. Now, that is something that no nation will permit. No nation will permit anyone to cross the to challenge the sovereignty or violate the sovereignty of a nation, of another nation. So in this particular case, they challenged and they violated the sovereignty of Pakistan. The answer had to be given. One could have been that immediately after, although Pakistan did achieve the results that it did on the 6-7 night, maybe India would have, if at that time, if sanity had prevailed, they would have said, okay, there is no need to go more, and we are sorry, it happened, this, that, and the other, and we're ready to sit down with Pakistan and solve all issues. Unfortunately, they did not do that. For the next 3 days, they kept sending Pakistan missiles and the drones and kept harassing the civilian populations in the Pakistani mainland cities. And that is when Pakistan had to be forced to take its own option. Now, if that has been the case and that has brought some sanity into the Indian thinking, welcome, happy for that. Because finally, we must understand we are two nuclear nations. And when we go to war, a full war, then there is no control over where it will lead. And it's easy to say that for two nuclear nations, actually, two nuclear nations have never gone to war ever before in the history of this world. So when you look at that, then you say, okay, we were on a slippery slope already. So, but Pakistan had, I think, probably burnt his boats, because when India just would not understand sense and sanity, Pakistan felt, okay, this is it. This is that do or die thing. And we were ready to do it. Even now, when they have taken the Indus Water Treaty or held it in abeyance, we will need solutions on the Indus Water Treaty before we actually settle for any sort of amicable resolution of the current conflict and the current crisis. And so, whoever comes in as a mediator will have to look at these factors. And then this inclination of India to every time that something happened. Now, who knows who's got that done? Pahalgam, for example, I'm talking about. And if India, as a nation as big as it is going to resort to this kind of allegations and name calling, then in that case, Pakistan will have to stand up for its right for its dignity and respect and the sovereignty of its borders. So that too, India as a nation must understand that you cannot take another nation of 250 million people through that kind of entire sense of entitlement and deal with them the way that it has. That too should come into play as we settle down into this. So when I heard these people say that, I said that yes, perhaps this was the bolt, or this was the whatever had to be given, a force that had to be applied to bring them to their sanity. And I hope they have, because once when they've done this, then Pakistan can sit with India now to see that how we can get out of this crisis, and then hopefully have a more sort of a stable relationship between the two nations.
So, provided, of course, that, like, let's say later tonight they don't send in some more drones. Obviously, I mean, we have to then,
Obviously,
yeah,
obviously.
that, and the other thing you talked about, mediation, mediatory. America has been, so
Yeah.
today, like America, the Secretary of State, as I said earlier, spoke to General Asim Munir, and that's what they said in the statement, and they offered to mediate. That's the first time I think he's spoken to him directly. My question is that, given that America is, although America actually hasn't really taken sides so much in this conflict, one would have thought that the impression that India wants to give to the rest of the world, that Modi and Trump are like best friends, but Trump has on record said at least twice that I've heard that, I know both of the countries really well, and so he's, I think, hasn't really differentiated. But is America, and I mean, I think the likely mediation would either be America or Saudi Arabia, or a mixture of both, combination of both. So should Pakistan accept mediation by America, given its past experiences with America, both positive and negative?
Look, Pakistan has had to, will need to have its diplomatic strategy in place, because this is an opportunity. Remember, I mean, India would not talk to us.
Yeah.
India would not let Kashmir be mentioned in the Security Council. It has probably not been mentioned as as an issue for a very, very long time now in the Security Council. But in the last week, 10 days, it has come up as an issue again, and the Security Council has sat down to discuss it. Since actually 2019, it never came up. So when you look at all this, these are the changes which are more positive in the sense of what Pakistan's position has been. And no one has actually, till now, till date, no one had bothered to move into resolve issues between India and Pakistan, because they wanted to keep a very safe distance from the problems that the two nations were engaged in for a very long time, including legacy issues. Indus Water Treaty is a recent one. But when you look at this, and the countries of the world are now ready to come in and talk about these issues, Pakistan's own plan should be pretty clear to Pakistan in terms of the diplomatic strategy, and that should be that not only Kashmir, they're not only Indus Water Treaty, but Kashmir, name calling in terms of these events that keep happening, periodically every few years in India or somewhere. The situation in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in terms of Afghanistan and the TTP coming out from there. I mean, all these will have to be comprehensively addressed, and all these will have to come under discussion. I'm not saying today. I'm not saying within the next week, 10 days, but whatever undertaking that anyone wants from Pakistan will also need to give an undertaking back to Pakistan that India and Pakistan will be made to sit together to address these issues. Unless Kashmir is resolved in a way acceptable to both sides and largely to the Kashmiris, and we're not sticking to one particular thing. We look at Kashmir in a different way, and we need to come to a stable solution for Kashmiris in there. The inhumanity that they are suffering, how can we alleviate that? And when we look at all those things and include those in, then it makes for a comprehensive piece. Also, the fact that remember the Western rivers, the three rivers that they're under the Indus Water Treaty, which have been held in abeyance now by India. Two of those at least emerge, have mouths in Indian occupied Kashmir. And so we need some assurances there as well in terms of the Indus Water Treaty, as well as the waters of those two rivers that have their mouth heads in Kashmir, which is Jhelum and Chenab. And similarly, the Indus Water. The point is that Pakistan's very crucial and critical interests will have to be looked at. And we don't want to get into a war every few years, 4 or 5 years, in a skirmish with India and restart the whole thing from a very beginning. And India will also have to give an undertaking in terms of its keeping a more stable order. Let it be an order-driven region rather than one that is whimsical, one that anyone wants to. India thinks that it's the hegemon and can perhaps do what it feels some other nation may be doing in the world. Well, that's not going to happen here. And every time Pakistan and India will have to face off a situation where they can end up into a nuclear war.
Yeah, right, sir. And again, because your expertise, I'm sure, is invaluable. I also wanted to talk a bit going beyond the events of today and talking in general about air forces. And so, in this particular, whatever we want to call it, conflict, not maybe more war, I hope it doesn't happen. We've seen a lot of use of drone technology. So how do you see that? I think compared to maybe the past 10, 15 years, obviously it's improved. It's increased a lot. And Pakistan has used drones. India is like using drones probably because it doesn't, it's like you said, they go across and they don't need to come back, and they don't need to fight for the airspace and all that. And it's safer for them than having a pilot shot down, airplane shot down, and a pilot being taken and having the embarrassment of that. But how do you see the emerging drone technology? That's one question. And the other thing, the hot topic that on May 7th night, that fight that happened, lots of the Western press is talking about it as well. And they've quoted, Pakistani officials or sources. And I mean, it seems to be the case that both the air forces were on either side of the LOC, and kind of firing at each other. And Pakistani obviously shot down 5 of them, if not more. So these two things, drones, and what do you make of that? And do you know anything that we might not know about that intense dogfight that happened? And yesterday there was a story in Reuters which said that that's going to be studied by militaries all over the world, and also the whole interest of the US and the rest of the world in the Chinese missile PL-15. And clearly Pakistan has I mean, I was saying it the other day. Pakistan has a very good ally in China, and it showed in this showed in this conflict. And obviously, China also found out that how technologically superior its weapons are compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's a very valid observation and valid questions as well. I mean, first thing on the UAVs and the drones. I feel that the world has drawn wrong lessons from the Azerbaijan Armenia skirmish or little war that they had, conflict that they had in the use of the drones. The drones need a control of the air or airspace which is absolutely free for their use. That is why you see a lot of drones being used in areas which are in counter terror, in counter insurgent, that those kind of missions. It is a good means of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance kind of thing. But then if you are in a contested airspace, then obviously they don't stand a chance. They may be able to sneak through, but then they will come down eventually. Sometimes they do give a reasonably good information back because they're connected, linked with the with their command centers, and they can give out some intelligence and surveillance. But that's about it. I mean, otherwise, depending on the payload that you want to put in them, they will do that job for you. If you make them kamikaze drones, for example, well, there is uh, little effect that they create. Some of those were sent to Pakistan by India
Yeah.
in the last 3 days or 4 days. So I don't see much chance in a contested airspace for the UAVs. There would be a misfit there. They don't have a chance. Why India chose, I've mentioned already, because of the fact they wanted to keep their aeroplanes out of action. They wanted to keep them safe. And so therefore they just sent these things that they're more of a nuisance more than anything else. And then it depends on your own tolerance as to how long do you want that nuisance to stay, because you will finally react to it and you want this nonsense to go away. So they don't do anything. They just keep, making that buzzing sound around you
Hovering,
or on
yes.
top of you. That's about it. That's about it. And so it's harassment, and that's about it. For a civilian sort of a thing. We in military, of course, are more objective oriented. I mean, what purpose is it serving? As long as it is serving the intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, okay, fine, all right. You can make use of them, but then if they don't deliver anything in the end, it's of no use. Now coming on to that particular dogfight that you're talking about, it's not a dogfight. It's basically the dogfight of the modern day combat. It was about uh, popularly about 100 plus aeroplanes, say 120 aeroplanes or so on both sides. And they're not in one area, they're spread out in a certain sectors, like be 2 to 3 sectors. And similarly, you'll have defensive planes, could be about 70, 80 from their side, 40 from our side. And now, what has made this different than the rest? And why is the world interested in this? This is the first modern day air combat to have taken place between two nations which are equipped in a similar way, have similar sort of capacity and capability. It is also the first ever combat between fighters and the air forces that are carrying long range, real long range, beyond visual range missiles. So in the earlier fights and wars, if you remember, I mean, Pakistan is known for Alam and all that stuff, but
Yes.
that was in aeroplanes that were flying at speeds of 300 miles per hour, 300 miles
Oh.
per hour. The drones fly 300 miles per hour these days. Okay, it could be anywhere from 100 miles to 300 miles. So when you have those kind of speeds, the radius of combat is very small. And so the fight or the combat used to be restricted to visual only. I mean, a pilot could visually see his targets and therefore act based on the position of the aeroplane or whatever the other guy was doing. And so you could visually position yourself. Here you are beyond visual. You can't see it with your naked eyes, but you can see it on your radar. So you have what you need is a very, very good radar that will not be defeated by enemies jamming. So you got to have that kind of a radar, which can look long. That means you can pick up aeroplanes farther than the enemy. Thirdly, you need to have a weapon, which is a missile, of course, at all times, which must not only be married to your radar, but also have the capacity to fly faster, longer than the enemy's missile, and be the terminal killer when it reaches, say, within about the last 20, 30 miles of its of its flight. And so you're talking of ranges, say, I would generally put you in a range of 100 nautical miles and more, say 120 miles normal statute ground miles to in the air. And that kind of different distances, obviously, you can't see the aeroplane. So that is what we're talking about. And the radar is seeing it. The missile is seeing it because the radar is seeing it, and they're married to each other. Whatever the radar does, the missile is actually moving in the same direction. And when the pilot fires a missile, it continues to depend on the mother radar and takes it to through the flight, which is the mid-course guidance. And then it takes it into its terminal phase. And the terminal phase is when its own systems come on. And it is hypersonic, it is supersonic, and supersonic 3 to 4 times supersonic, and just goes and hardly gives a second to the enemy aeroplane to
Oh,
get out of it, even if it was to pick up visual with it. So it's the first shot, first look, first shot capability. Plus the fact that every time that this missile is launched, the pilots have to maneuver themselves in a way in the formation to and place the enemy in that position where he becomes a target for them. And so therefore both sides are manipulating and maneuvering their aeroplanes and their formations in a way that they can get their radar and the missile to look at them when it is the most opportune moment to fire the missile. And that is what takes tactics and training. So a combination of all these things, it's technology, it is weaponry, it is training, a lot of it, and huge amount of training and the tactics which are involved. And that is why you see these numbers on both sides, which are actually meant to create those environments and those kind of opportunities for you to do that. It is not one-off. It is not a chance, contact or conflict that you get into. It is a very, very well planned maneuver in which how you maneuver your formation or your planes, and then obviously you have other people assisting you. I mean, airborne early warning radars assist you in that a lot. Your own radars, your airborne radars, which you carry on the aeroplane, are perhaps the best thing because that is what you shoot your weapons with, and of course they also provide you the initial context. So all that is there, and I'm not going to go beyond that because that will be
yes,
giving
yes,
out
yes. Yeah,
operational
no, no, no,
information.
no, no. I
Yeah.
don't.
So
But
so
to lose five planes in that
yeah,
process
yeah,
would be like a really, really slap in your face, which India
yeah,
experienced on that day.
yeah,
I
absolutely,
mean,
absolutely.
and for
That's exactly
Pakistan
how it is.
not to lose even a single aircraft, mashallah, would be like
Alhamdulillah.
yeah. So
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. No,
that's
exactly. For any Air Force, I was telling somebody when
yeah.
I'm doing these, things, television, this, transmissions that we're doing these days, that even for an Air Force of the standard of the United States Air Force, an American Air Force, which is considered to be very well trained and perhaps one of the top in the world today, it will be a matter of great honor and great achievement to have 5 kills in a single combat and in a 1 hour combat of the modern day types, where the speeds are, just to give you an idea, the closing speed of two fighters when they're facing opposing fighters facing into each other is 1200 miles per
Oh,
hour. So
okay.
consider 300 miles per hour to 1200 miles per hour today. So it's like seconds that you actually can pass through each
Yes,
other.
because yes,
So,
yeah, because
and,
it's
and those
all
kind of
it's
speeds.
not very far from each other. Both sides of the
Yeah, I
LOC, they're
mean,
just next to each other.
yeah, and the fact that, yeah, I mean, so therefore those you got to play those ranges, you got to play those things in, and I don't want to train other air forces
Hmm.
into the
Yes,
art of
yes, yes,
war
yes.
fighting,
Uh,
but
uh,
there's a
so
lot more complexity to the whole thing. Yeah,
but thank you for being with us. And so basically, I mean, I think what moving forward, I think what you said was very important. That the role of military philosophy bit that you mentioned was that it's the role of the air force or the military and all that to create a room for the politicians to then come and talk. And hopefully, that's something that we will see happen in the next phase, because obviously, war is not good for anybody, either Pakistan or
absolutely.
India or anybody else in the entire world. And thank you again, Air Marshal Saab. And I will be talking to you soon. We talk to each other on on informal social media all the time. And thank you again for being on our podcast.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.